Good afternoon, everyone. So, yesterday we started our discussion of biomes, right? So, before we proceed, let's take a small recap of our yesterday's class. And in case you have doubts from yesterday's class, please ask. So, what we have discussed in our last class, we have discussed about homeostasis, right? क्या होता है ये? What is homeostasis? ऐसे कैसे समझ में आएगा? एक जन, हाँ बताइए. ठीक है, by self regulation, that is called as homeostasis. ठीक है. So is it related to ecosystem only? No, right? Even individuals, even cells can perform homeostasis. ठीक है. इसके बाद हमने देखा decomposition, right? We talked about decomposition. ठीक है. इसमें कुछ stages हमने देखे थे. Can you please tell me those stages? Fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification and mineralization, right? So those are 5 stages of decomposition, right? We also discussed that there are some factors that influence the process of decomposition. कौन से factors है? Climate, right? Climate is the factor because in hot and humid conditions we have rate of decomposition relatively higher, right? जो rate होता है वो relatively higher होगा किस temperature में, किस climatic condition में? Warm and wet conditions, ठीक है. And in cold and dry conditions rate would be relatively less. So that is first factor, climate. Second factor is, right, detritus, जो raw material है decomposition का वो किस compound से बना हुआ है, उसमें क्या चीजें है, that would also determine the rate of decomposition, right? For example, if detritus is rich in nitrogen and sugar compound, then the rate of decomposition would be faster, right? पर अगर बहुत ज़्यादा पॉलीमर्स होंगे जैसे कि लिग्नाइन, काइटाइन, then rate would be relatively slow. That we have discussed, right? Now one more point I would like to add. It is inherent, we have referred to it, but let me put it explicitly. ठीक है? Decomposition is an oxygen intensive process. Decomposition is an oxygen intensive process. ठीक है? And it leads to emission of CO2. It leads to emission of CO2. So that point you should be aware कि oxygen की ज़रूरत होती है during the process of decomposition. And when the process of decomposition has occurred, which gas will be emitted? CO2. CO2 would be emitted. Now why CO2 has emitted? CO2 क्यों emit हुआ है? Because the organisms that are carrying out decomposition are carrying out the process of respiration, right? उस respiration के process के दरमियान CO2 would be emitted, right? Even we do that. हम ऑक्सीजन लेते हैं और CO2 let's say exhale करते हैं, right? So that's why CO2 is emitted from this particular process. Fine. Now you must have heard about anaerobic conditions. ऐसी conditions जहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन अवेलेबल नहीं है. Even if it is available, it is very little. ठीक है, उन conditions को क्या कहते हैं? Anaerobic conditions, right? तो अगर anaerobic conditions में process of decomposition is occurring, will there be emission of CO2 from that particular process? No, right? So that point is important. So try to understand. ये CO2 कब emit हो रहा है? जब aerobic conditions होगी तब. When the process of decomposition occurs in aerobic conditions, it leads to emission of CO2. ठीक है? Why? Because during aerobic conditions, oxygen would be utilized and CO2 would be exhaled out. ठीक है? But if the conditions are anaerobic conditions होगी, oxygen deficient conditions होगी, तो CO2 emit नहीं होगा. It would lead to emission of methane. right? So that is an important point that you should be aware of. Decomposition is an oxygen intensive process which leads to emission of CO2, but that is only true for aerobic conditions. In anaerobic conditions, which gas is emitted out, exhaled out, is methane. ठीक है? And that's why paddy fields lead to emission of methane. पैडी फील्ड्स जो धान के खेत होते हैं उनसे कौन सा गैस आता है? मीथेन आता है. ठीक है? Why? Because if you visualize those paddy fields, they are waterlogged. They are waterlogged. If waterlogged conditions are there, will there be availability of much O2? No. Right? उस condition में ऑक्सीजन की deficiency होगी. It would be as good as anaerobic conditions in that particular area, and that's why which gas would be emitted? ठीक है? So that point you should be aware of. Fine. ये हमने discuss किया था कल. फिर we have also talked about productivity. प्रोडक्टिविटी क्या है? प्रोडक्टिविटी रेट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन ऑफ फूड और बायोमास इज प्रोडक्टिविटी, राइट? अगर प्रोडक्टिविटी प्रोड्यूसर से एसोसिएटेड है उस प्रोडक्टिविटी को हम क्या कहेंगे? प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी, राइट? इट इज व्हाट इज प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी? इट इज द रेट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन ऑफ फूड और बायोमास बाय प्रोड्यूसर्स ड्यूरिंग द प्रोसेस ऑफ फोटोसिंथेसिस. ठीक है? So that is what is primary productivity. There are two types of primary productivity, gross and net. Gross matlab total biomass produced during the activity of photosynthesis, right? That is gross primary productivity. And net is, what is net? Net primary productivity is GPP minus R, right? ये सारा जो बायोमास प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है ड्यूरिंग जीपीपी is not allowed to be used by consumers. A part of it would be used by producers themselves for their growth, and that we call as R, respirational loss, right? When we subtract this respirational loss from GPP, what we get is NP. Okay? Then there is second type of productivity called as secondary productivity, which is rate of formation of biomass by consumers. Okay? Rate of formation of biomass by consumers. So that point we have discussed. ठीक है? इसके बाद हमने स्टार्ट किया था डिस्कशन किसका? बायोम्स का, राइट? कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी व्हाट आर बायोम्स? कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी बायो? हाँ, हेलो, बायोम्स क्या होते हैं? यू देयर यस्टरडे, राइट? नहीं थे आप लोग? हाँ, व्हाट इज बायोम? आप थे कल? ट्राई तो कीजिए, ऐसा एकदम नहीं पता ऐसे थोड़ी ना चले. ट्राई कीजिए. हैव यू रिवाइज यस्टरडेज क्लास? नो, शुड रिवाइज. चीजें, इट्स लाइक, हैव यू सीन हाउ पॉपकॉर्न्स आर मेड? जब पॉपकॉर्न बनाते हैं वो इनिशियली वो उछलते रहता है. यू हैव टू पुट ए लीड ऑन इट. सो व्हेनेवर वी डिस्कस थिंग्स, जब आप घर पे जाओगे ये सारी चीजें ऐसे उछलने लगेगी. whatever we discuss, you have to revise it, you have to put a lead of revision on it so that it consolidates, right? अगर आप घर पे जाके तब का तब पढ़ोगे, you will be able to recall it even after 1 month, right? Make sure you revise these things then and there. It would be very helpful even if you revise it later on. जो री-रिविजन होगी, सेकेंड रिविजन होगी, आप दूसरे रिवीजन के टाइम जब आप लेट्स से 1 महीने के बाद रिवीजन करोगे तब भी ये चीज़ें आपको लेट्स से यू विल बी एबल टू रिकॉल देम. बट यू हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट यू रिवाइज फर्स्ट टाइम देन एंड देयर, राइट? अदरवाइज इट वुड बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू रिकॉल थिंग्स. इट मे बी द केस जो चीज़ें आपने नहीं भी लिखी लेकिन क्लासरूम में हमने डिस्कस की है, आपको वो चीज़ें याद होगी अगर आप रिविजन करोगे ऑन दैट डे इटसेल्फ, एंड यू विल बी एबल टू ऐड इट इन द मार्जिन्स एज वेल, राइट? पर वो 1 महीने बाद नहीं होगी वो प्रोसेस. ठीक है? सो मेक श्योर यू रिवाइज. सो व्हाट आर बायोम्स? Biomes are the larger ecological unit, right, which consist of many ecosystems in them, right? And these larger ecological units are characterized by the type of vegetation. किस प्रकार का vegetation है, that would determine the type of biome, right? And when we say vegetation, we are not excluding animals. Animals are also there, right? And the characteristics of biomes are influenced by, right? Two factors, climatic factors and edaphic factors. Climatic factors मतलब दो, sunlight and precipitation, right? Sunlight and precipitation or rainfall. And second is edaphic factor. Edaphic factor means soil factor, right? तो वो हमने डिस्कस किया था कल. We also started discussion of types of biomes, जिसमें हमने पहला देखा था टुंड्रा, right? So tundra biome. So tundra biome, we have discussed that what are the conditions, right? Conditions are deficit sunlight and deficit precipitation in the form of snowfall, right? Then why we have accumulation of snow there? If we are saying that it is in deficit, why we have accumulation of snow there? See, we are using the term deficit. It's not that it is not at all there. Snowfall ऐसे नहीं कि snowfall हो ही नहीं रहा है, right? Snowfall will be there, and that snow that we can visualize in tundra is the result of time. Over the period of time, it has accumulated in that particular area, and that's why we are able to see those areas as permanently frozen areas. ठीक है? So those are the conditions. What is the location? 70 to 80 degree नॉर्थ लैटिट्यूड. इसमें कौन सा होता है? आर्कटिक टुंड्रा. और फिर समिट्स ऑफ माउंटेन्स में अल्पाइन टुंड्रा होता है, राइट? ठीक है. नाउ दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. सी, इट माइट बी द केस अगर आप कोई दूसरा सोर्स रेफर करोगे, इस ऑल्टीट्यूडनल लेट्स से रेंज में कुछ वेरिएशन आएगा. यू हैव टू एक्सेप्ट दैट, राइट? ऐसा नहीं कि एकदम फिक्स मतलब 70 to 80 डिग्री यही होना चाहिए, इट कैन नॉट बी एट 65, ऐसा नहीं हो, राइट? सो एक्सेप्ट द वेरिएशंस ऑफ लैटिट्यूडनल रेंज बाय 5 to 7 डिग्री लैटिट्यूड्स. 5-7 डिग्री लैटिट्यूड का वेरिएशन आपको देखने को मिल सकता है, ठीक है? बट दीज नंबर्स वुड हेल्प यू रिमेंबर दीज थिंग्स, राइट? अगर मैंने वो नंबर दे दिया आपको तो कंफ्यूजन होगा, राइट? सो दीज नंबर्स वुड हेल्प यू रिमेंबर थिंग्स, बिकॉज वी विल बी प्लॉटिंग. एक डायग्राम बनाएंगे हम वर्ल्ड बायोम की, उसमें चीजें फिक्स होगी इन लैटिट्यूड्स के वजह से. सो लेट्स यूज दीज लैटिट्यूड्स, बट एक्सेप्ट दैट देयर माइट बी वेरिएशंस इन द लैटिट्यूड. 5-7 डिग्री का वेरिएशन आएगा, ठीक है? सो दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव डिस्कस्ड. देन वी डिस्कस्ड अबाउट द फीचर्स. व्हाट आर द फीचर्स? परमानेंटली फ्रोजन सब सरफेस, राइट? जो सब सरफेस है वो परमानेंटली फ्रोजन होगा. क्यों? क्योंकि इस एरिया में, टुंड्रा एरिया में, वी विल बी हैविंग अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ सनलाइट ड्यूरिंग समर सीजन फॉर नदर्न हेमिस्फीयर, राइट? जब नदर्न हेमिस्फीयर में समर सीजन होगा तो हमें सनलाइट देखने को मिलेगी इस लैटिट्यूड में, एंड एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ सनलाइट, upper layer would melt. Upper layer of that snow would melt, but the lower layers of that snow will remain permanently frozen, and that's why we are calling it as permanently frozen subsurface. ठीक है? अगर water melt हो रहा है, will there be availability of waterlogged conditions during summer season? Yes. Summer season में waterlogged conditions आपको देखने को मिलेगी इस एरिया, fine? And as a result of that, we will be having availability of insects in this area. Okay, that we discussed. And one more important feature is migratory adaptability, right? So water would be available during summer season. What about colder season? In colder season, conditions would be very harsh for the organisms, especially animals, to survive. And that's why what they do, they migrate from that area to the lower latitudes. Lower latitudes matlab taiga. We'll be discussing it, but lower latitudes matlab taiga, right? There is a biome at 60 to 70 degree north latitudes. It is called as taiga. We'll talk about it in a while. Okay, so those are the features. Then we talked about species of producers and consumers. ठीक है, ये हमने डिस्कस किया था. नाउ एक और पॉइंट ऐड कीजिए, सॉइल. सॉइल डाउट से 1 मिनट में आता हूं आपके डाउट्स के ऊपर. जस्ट अ मिनट, लेट मी टेल यू द सॉइल. हाँ, सॉइल लिखिए. पुअरली डेवलप्ड सॉइल, poorly developed soil characterized by permafrost. Poorly developed soil characterized by permafrost, right? It is called as cryosol. Cryosol. It is called as cryosol. 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 Cryo, you must have heard about this term, cryo. Cryosphere सुना है? What is cryosphere? Cryo preservation भी एक term होता है. What it is? Cryo means extremely low temperature. Even cryogenic engines are there, right? Do we use cryogenic engines in India? Yes, we use, right? Cryo means extremely low temperature, right? Cryosphere मतलब ऐसा part earth का, you have heard about atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, but there is cryosphere as well. What is cryosphere? ऐसा part earth का जो frozen, that would be called as cryosphere. So cryo means extremely low temperature. So this term that we use for soil in this particular area is cryosol. Okay. Now one, so that is what is tundra biome. Clear? ठीक है. एक note add कीजिए because you are asking doubts about this. So एक note add कीजिए इसके बाद. In southern hemisphere, tundra biome is poorly developed. And present in a very sparse manner. Sparse, S-P-A-R-C-E, sparse, S-P-A-R-C-E, right? And it is not in the form of, Arctic tundra. ठीक है. So present है क्या? है, right? It might be the case because there is one biome which is totally absent in southern hemisphere. We will talk about it. Tundra biome, if there is a statement tundra biome is entirely absent in southern hemisphere, what would be your answer? Incorrect statement. This statement is incorrect, right? It is there, but it is not well developed the way we have in let's say this particular location. आर्कटिक टुंड्रा में जो फीचर्स हमें देखने को मिलते हैं वो हमें अंटार्कटिक टुंड्रा में देखने को नहीं मिलते, राइट? इवन कंडीशंस आर मोर हार्श इन एंटार्कटिक रीजन, राइट? एंटार्कटिक रीजन में कंडीशंस ज्यादा हार्श होती है. यहाँ पे यू विल बी एबल टू सी some thawing, some melting of snow, but that is not seen in that particular area in Antarctic, right? And that's why sparsely we have let's say presence of tundra biome in southern hemisphere. It is not well developed. It is not a kind of let's say biome that we consider which is like Arctic tundra. ठीक है. अगर स्टेटमेंट आता है प्रेजेंट है क्या? हाँ प्रेजेंट है, बट इट इज नॉट वेल डेवलप्ड. ठीक है. सो दैट इज एन इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट क्योंकि आपने yesterday also some students have asked, you also asked about this particular doubt. Clear है everyone? ठीक है. हाँ डाउट्स पूछिए, डाउट्स सेम डाउट. ठीक है, हो गया. तो what is carrying capacity of earth? So carrying capacity of earth is how many individuals of different species that earth would be able to sustain without depleting its resources and without losing its ability to regenerate those resources. That is carrying capacity of earth. What type of biome we have? वो हो गया doubt. I think Shrishti Kumari, this doubt is clear now. How many classes? वो मुझ पे छोड़ दीजिए. How many classes? We'll discuss things. आराम से डिस्कस करेंगे. दिस इज एन इम्पोर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट एंड दैट्स व्हाई देयर विल बी नो हरी. आफ्टर स्पार्स क्या था? ये नीचे एक सब पॉइंट लिखा है. व्हाट इट इज? एंड इट इज नॉट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ आर्कटिक टुंड्रा. नो आदिति, दैट इज नॉट आर्कटिक टुंड्रा. ठीक है. सो आई होप इट इज क्लियर नाउ. आपके कुछ डाउट्स है? डाउट्स? लेट्स प्रोसीड. सेकंड desert biome. डेजर्ट बायोम। क्या हो गया? ठीक है, ठीक है। हाँ, कंडीशंस। What kind of conditions are there in desert? Surplus sunlight, surplus sunlight and deficit precipitation. Deficit precipitation. Surplus sunlight and deficit precipitation. Okay. So, is it the case that precipitation is in deficit? Right. Yes. Does that mean there is no, let's say, rainfall in that particular area? No, it does rain, right? I think I have already hinted this. It does rain in desert, पर evaporational loss ज़्यादा होता है than the precipitational gain, right? So, condition is like this. Location. In terms of latitudes, what is the location of deserts? We have deserts at two locations. First is 10 degree to 30 degree north and south. 10 degree to 30 degree north and south. कहाँ पे लेकिन? Entire 10 to 30 degree north and south, do we have this? No, no. Western margins. Western margins of the continents. Western margins of the continents, right? 10 to 30 degree north and south, western margins of the continents, we have presence of deserts. Examples. इसके examples लिखिए. Atacama. Atacama. Where is Atacama? Chile, right? It's there in Chile. Comma Sahara. Sahara. Sahara in Africa. Next. Next. Great Victoria Desert. Great Victoria Desert, Australia. And even Thar. Thar Desert. ठीक है. तो ये है एग्जाम्पल्स किसके? 10 to 30 degree north and south में जो डेजर्ट है उसके. नेक्स्ट नाउ, नेक्स्ट one more location is there for the presence of desert, and that is 30 to 45 degree north and south. 30 to 45 degree north and south. Where? In the continental interiors. Continental interiors. In the continental interiors. Examples. Patagonia. Patagonia. Where? Argentina. Argentina. Gobi. Gobi Desert. Right? It is shared by Mongolia and China. Next. Ladakh. Ladakh. Comma Lahul and Spiti Valley. Lahul and Spiti Valley in India. Ladakh, Lahul and Spiti Valley are also in this particular range zone. Okay. Fine. Now, can you please tell me why this particular latitude? Why this particular latitude deserts are there? Why in this particular latitude deserts are there? इस location में deserts क्यों हैं? Exactly. Right. वो geography हो गया आपका. Right. So why in this particular location we have presence of desert? Because trade winds are offshore in this particular area. Offshore means they are moving towards the shore from land area. So अगर land से shore के तरफ जा रही है तो उनमें moisture होगा क्या? नहीं होगा. Right? If they are coming from shores towards land, they will be having moisture. पर जब land से shore के तरफ जा रहे हैं, they will be lacking moisture. So if moisture is lacking, obviously कौन सा let's say biome होगा वहाँ पे desert होगा, right? And why we have desert in this particular location? In this particular location we have desert because of the continentality, right? Continental location है, बहुत ज़्यादा interior location है, and that's why we have presence of desert in this particular area. ठीक है? So that is what is the location for desert. Clear? Next, features. Features. So what are the features? One we have already pointed out, more evaporational loss, than the precipitational gain, precipitational gain, more evaporational loss than the precipitational gain. Daily extremes of temperatures, daily extremes of temperature range. जो diurnal range होती है, that is extreme. In daytime, temperatures may reach at, let's say, 50 degrees Celsius, and during night time it would be let's say freezing cold, right? 0 degree तक भी जा सकता है temperature. ठीक है. Next, excessive reliance on subsurface water. In these areas, as we do not have enough availability of water, we will be having excessive reliance on subsurface water. Okay? So those are the features that we have in these areas. Fine. Next, species. Pehle producers. Now there would be some points that would be repeated here, right? जो हमने desert adaptations में देखे थे, वो कुछ points यहाँ पे repeat हो सकते हैं. Can you please tell me the term that we use for those plants that are adapted to drier conditions? Xerophytes. So xerophytes we have here, right? Producers are in the form of xerophytes. They are succulents. They are succulents. Succulents means, sorry, right? There would be some tissues called as succulents tissues where we will be having storage of water, right? इन्हें क्या conserve करना है? Water conserve करना है. So there may be presence of some tissues called as succulents tissue, which will allow them to store water, and hence we call these producers as succulents. ठीक है. Next, Perathrophytes. Perathrophytes. The plants are perathrophytes. Why? Because they are dependent on groundwater. For their growth, they are dependent on groundwater. Perathrophytes. Okay. These are the types of producers which we will be able to see in desert area. Examples क्या होंगे इसके? Examples you can write. Desert lily. Desert lily. Palm trees. Prickly pear cactus. चलेगा चलेगा सकते हो. सैगुराओ कैक्टस. घर पे जाके ये नाम गूगल करने हैं, ठीक है. एलोवेरा लाइक दैट. ठीक है. these are the plants that we have in desert area. Clear? Fine. See, there would be names that would be coming in this particular section. ये नाम important है. यूपीएससी डायरेक्टली नाम देता है एंड पूछता है वो ये नाम कौन से फॉरेस्ट से रिलेटेड है, कौन से बायोम से रिलेटेड है. तो नेम्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट. ठीक है. क्लियर? एलोवेरा. एलोवेरा. Fine. Next now, animals or consumers. Consumers. So what we call consumers that are adapted to drier conditions. Similar to xerophytes, we have animals that are adapted to drier conditions called as xerocoles. Xerocoles. They are xerocoles. They are nocturnal. They exhibit they exhibit estivation, right? They are zero coals, that means they will be adapted to drier condition, urine concentrated hoga, right? Then they will be burrowing in nature, that means they will be living under the ground, right? So ये सारे features हमें zero coals में देखने को मिलते हैं. Nocturnal means awake during night, and estivation which we have already discussed. क्या होता है estivation? Yes, हाँ, white, बताओ, आप तो पढ़े हो यार, ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हो? नहीं नहीं, यहाँ पे नहीं, आपका ग्रेजुएशन भी है इसी सब्जेक्ट में, इसी से रिलेटेड फील्ड में. प्लीज, व्हाट इज एस्टिवेशन? राइट, इट इज a kind of suspension in hot conditions. Suspension in hot conditions is estivation, right? ये हमने रेफर किया. Examples you can write. Examples you can write as desert fox, fennec fox, black-tailed jackrabbit, then you can write monitor lizard, then reptiles, your favorite camel. ऐसे एनिमल्स हमें देखने को मिलेंगे इन डेजर्ट एरियाज. क्लियर? यस, एनी डाउट? Kangaroo rat, not rat. Kangaroo rat would be there, right? It is a specific species of rat that we see in Great Victoria Desert of Australia. ठीक है, ये सारे एनिमल्स यहाँ पे देखने को. क्लियर? Yes or no? Next and last is soil. Next and last is soil. Under that, soil with sandy structure. Soil with sandy structure. Sandy structure. Consisting of low organic matter. Consisting of low organic matter. Is it the case? Right? Will it be having low organic matter? Obviously yes. क्यों? क्योंकि बहुत ज़्यादा पेड़ नहीं है. Right? अगर पेड़ नहीं है तो जो detritus चाहिए वो available नहीं होगा, and as a result of that organic matter will not be there. Right? Even if it is there, it is very poor. Next, comma, high concentration of salts. High concentration of salts. Next, this kind of soil is called aridisol. Aridisol, SOL. ठीक है, fine. So these two are the deserts where we have extreme conditions. इन दो deserts में extreme conditions हमें देखने को मिली. ठीक है. Next now, if you have any doubt, please ask. Forest biome. Next is forest biome. Condition. What kind of condition would be there in forest? In terms of sunlight and precipitation. No, I am asking about sunlight and precipitation, sunlight and rainfall. Surplus sunlight, yes or no? Right? अगर इस एरिया में फॉरेस्ट है, that means vegetation would be dominant. For vegetation to be dominant, we should have availability of enough sunlight. So surplus sunlight and surplus rainfall या precipitation, whatever you want to do. Surplus sunlight and surplus precipitation. Okay, so that is what is the condition. Next, it is home of vegetation. Abode of vegetation कहते हैं इसे, home of vegetation. It is home of vegetation. Why? Because more than 70% of biomass associated with vegetation is seen in forest biomes. Right? 70% of the vegetation biomass is concentrated in forest area, and that's why it is called as home, abode of vegetation. Okay. Now we will be talking about different types of forest biomes. So starting with first is equatorial rainforest. Equatorial rainforest, abbreviated as ERF. Abbreviated as ERF. Now, कहाँ है ये? 10 degree north to 10 degree south. Right? This is the location of equatorial rainforest, 10 degree north to 10 degree south. Condition we have already referred to entirely for forest biome. Next, features. So, what kind of features are there in this particular area? What kind of लिखा है features, लिखा है, इसके आगे locations लिख दीजिए. Locations, Amazon basin, right? Amazon basin. In bracket, in Brazil especially, this forest is called as selvas. Right? In Brazil, this forest is called as selvas. So that is an important term. Okay. Then Congo basin and Indonesia. These locations you should be aware of. Okay. Amazon basin, Congo basin and Indonesia has this kind of forest. Do we in India have equatorial rainforest? Do we in India have equatorial rainforest? Western Ghats इस range में आ रहा है क्या? Do we have, again I repeat, do we have presence of equatorial rainforest in India? Yes, we have. Only Nicobar, not Andaman. Only Nicobar. हमारे इंडिया का जो लैटिट्यूडनल एक्सटेंट है वो क्या है? Does it start from 8 degree north? Right? So we do have presence of equatorial rainforest, but only in Nicobar, not even in Andaman. Andaman में भी नहीं है, सिर्फ निकोबार में. ठीक है. Features. What are the features? Warm and wet conditions. Warm and wet conditions. Why warm? Because sun rays are direct throughout the year. Why wet? Because it rains almost daily in this particular area. Right? हर रोज शाम के टाइम में बारिश होती है यहाँ पे. Which kind of rainfall? Convectional rainfall. Right? Convectional rainfall. Next. Warm and wet conditions. Next. Rains daily, leading to creation of water-logged conditions. Leading to creation of water-logged conditions. It rains daily in this particular area, and as a result of that, we have water-logged conditions in this forest. Okay. Next, dark and gloomy forest. As forest is closed forest. As forest is closed forest. अगर forest close होगा तो sun rays penetrate होंगे क्या? नहीं होंगे, and that's why diffused sunlight would be there, and that would lead to creation of dark and gloomy conditions. Next, layered arrangement layered arrangement of trees, लेयर्ड अरेंजमेंट ऑफ ट्रीज, ट्रीज जो होंगी वो लेयर्ड फॉर्म में होंगी, राइट। लेयर्ड मतलब ये ट्री होगी, फिर इसके बाद ये, फिर इसके बाद ये, राइट। सो लेयर्ड अरेंजमेंट वी विल बी एबल टू सी, एंड एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ दिस लेयर अरेंजमेंट ऑल्सो वी हैव प्रेजेंस ऑफ डार्क एंड ग्लूमी कंडीशन, ठीक है। नेक्स्ट, soil I'll mention here only because it is very typical feature of this forest. Laterite soil, laterite soil, and this laterite soil is acidic in nature and it is poorly fertile, poor fertility instead of poorly fertile, poor fertility can also do, ठीक है। लैटेराइट सॉइल है इस एरिया, इस प्रोसेस के वजह से फॉर्म होती है लीचिंग, फाइन, सी बट इट इज नॉट ओनली लीचिंग दैट लीड्स टू फॉर्मेशन ऑफ दिस। लीचिंग के वजह से क्या होता है, लीचिंग के वजह, व्हाई लीचिंग ऑकर्स, लीचिंग ऑकर्स बिकॉज इट रेन्स डेली, इट वाटर लॉक कंडीशन है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई लेट्स से एलिमेंट्स लाइक iron, aluminium, etc. Elements like silica would be removed from this particular forest. From this particular forest, what would be removed? Elements like silica would be removed. ठीक है, वो क्यों remove हो रहे हैं? Because of the process of leaching, right? But what remains? What remains make this soil laterite soil, right? क्या बचता है? Iron and aluminium बचता है इस soil, right? And that process where there is accumulation of iron and aluminium is called as laterization. So why this soil is getting formed? It is getting formed because of leaching and laterization, right? So likhiye wahan pe niche, formed because of leaching and laterization, formed because of leaching and laterization, formed because of leaching and laterization, ठीक है। And this soil is acidic in nature, fine, and it is poor in fertility, fine. If it is poor in fertility, why do we have dense forest in equatorial rainforest? Question is, if soil is poorly fertile in this area, why do we have dense forest in this area? Rains are too long. Conditions, first is condition, favorable conditions are there, right? जो vegetation के growth के लिए conditions चाहिए वो favorable, right? But that is only one reason. Any other reason? Any other reason? Any other reason? Why do we have dense forest despite poorly fertile soil? It is because of time. It is the result of time. See, you must have heard about the upheavals that earth has seen, like ice age, right? Ice age हुआ था, जो लास्ट आइस एज हुआ है वो लगभग 11,000 साल पहले हुआ, right? The ice age, the last ice age that we have seen on earth was 11,000 years before, right? Do we live in ice age today? No, right? So whatever ice age kind of upheavals that are there on earth, they were restricted to temperate and, let's say, polar region. They hardly affected tropical and subtropical region. They did not affect upheavals like ice age, did not affect tropical and subtropical region, and that's why species in this particular area got enough time to continue their survival, and that's why the forest that we have is the result of time. If we cut down that forest today, if we cut down that forest today, and if we plant some other, let's say, varieties of species, it might be the case on their own they won't be able to grow, right? वो जो plant species हम plant करेंगे on their own they won't be able to grow in our lifespan due to this kind of soil, right? अगर आपने fertilizers वगैरह add किए वो अलग बात, but naturally those trees will not be able to grow in our lifespan, even not, let's say, for like 300-400 years, right? So what is the reason behind the dense forest in this particular area? Two things: favorable conditions and time. जो स्पीशीज यहाँ पे रहते हैं दे आर वेरी ओल्ड स्पीशीज, राइट, दे आर नॉट ऑफ रीसेंट पास्ट, दे आर वेरी ओल्ड, ठीक है. सो दैट इज व्हाई वी हैव दिस काइंड ऑफ फॉरेस्ट डिस्पाइट पुअर फर्टाइल सॉइल, ठीक है. एक क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी ने पूछा था, एक क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी ने पूछा था वे बैक, बहुत हाल फिलहाल का नहीं है, मे बी 7-8 साल पहले का है. उसमें उन्होंने पूछा था, if we cut down the forest in equatorial region and if we put that forest for cultivation, what is the reason because of which that cultivation might not be able to grow? Reason is soil, ठीक है. सॉइल पुअरली फर्टाइल है, इसी वजह से हम लोग उस एरिया में ज़्यादा कल्टीवेशन हम देख नहीं पाएंगे. फाइन, सो वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट दीज काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस मे बी ऑन थर्सडे, ठीक है. आज और कल में हमारे ये सिलेबस हो जाएगा, ये चैप्टर हो जाएगा, एंड देन विल बी रेफरिंग टू PYQs ऑफ दिस चैप्टर, ठीक है. सो एनी डाउट इन दिस, एनी डाउट इन दिस? नेक्स्ट नाउ, नेक्स्ट स्पीशीज, पहले producers. Now we have referred to some names. If you remember, we have talked about lianas, we have referred to epiphytes, we have referred to vine. Have you referred to these names? Yes, have you referred to these names? याद नहीं, पढ़ना है, रिवाइज करना. नेक्स्ट, हार्डवुड varieties. Hardwood varieties like ebony, piney, then then balsam, rosewood, mahogany, balsam, rosewood, mahogany, etc. Fine, so these producers are there in this particular area. ठीक है. Lianas are woody vines, right? They wrap themselves to other tree to take the access of sunlight. Epiphytes like orchids are those plants which grow on the stems and branches of other plants, and vines are climbers, right? Climbers जो normally हम climbers देखते हैं which have herbaceous appearance are vines, ठीक. Next now, consumers. It is, this area is home of insects. This area is home of insects. Why home of insects? Because of waterlogged conditions. Then poisonous reptiles. Next, animals with arboreal adaptability. Animals with arboreal adaptability are also there, right? Tree dwellers, which we have already referred to. Gorillas, monkeys, squirrels. ठीक है. Next, examples you can write. Iguana, scarlet macaw, python, gorillas, chimpanzees, etc. Okay, those are the species of producers and consumers that you should be aware of. The layered arrangement of trees are affected by sunlight or precipitation. Sunlight. Layered arrangement is because of sunlight. Okay. layered arrangement is because of sunlight, because there would be competition for sunlight. ठीक है, एडाफिक सॉइल से रिलेटेड होती है और विथ सनलाइट, और सॉइल को ही हम लेट्स से ज्योग्राफिकल टर्म्स में एडाफिक फैक्टर कहते हैं, राइट. सॉइल, एडाफिक सॉइल से रिलेटेड नहीं है, सॉइल ओनली इज ए एडाफिक फैक्टर. इट इज नॉट एट ऑल रिलेटेड विथ सनलाइट या प्रेसिपिटेशन. फाइन, क्लियर है? फाइन. नेक्स्ट नाउ, नेक्स्ट second under this is, make sure you give numbers properly. हम forest biome के अंदर discuss करते हैं. Next is deciduous forest. Deciduous forest. Deciduous forest is divided into two. First is tropical deciduous forest. Tropical deciduous forest. And second is temperate deciduous forest. Temperate deciduous forest. ठीक है. Location. What is the location of tropical deciduous forest? It is 10 degree north to 45 degree north eastern margins. Eastern margins. Right? It would include subtropical as well. So 10 degree to 45 degree north and south. North and south. North and south. ठीक है. 10 डिग्री टू 45 डिग्री नॉर्थ एंड साउथ, दोनों हेमिस्फीयर में हमें ये देखने को मिलेगा. इट्स नॉट दैट इट इज ओनली रेस्ट्रिक्टेड टू नदर्न, राइट. एक फॉरेस्ट में एक्सप्लिसिटली बताऊंगा विच इज ओनली देयर इन नदर्न हेमिस्फीयर, ठीक है. बट ट्रॉपिकल डेसिडुअस इज देयर इन बोथ नदर्न एज वेल एज सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट, इसके भी लोकेशंस लिखते हैं साइमल्टेनियसली. So what is the location of temperate deciduous forest? It is 45 to 60 degree north and south, both eastern and western margins of the continent. Both eastern and western margins of the continent. ठीक है. Those are the locations. Next, features. What are the features of tropical deciduous forest? Lush green during rainy season. Lush green during rainy season and becomes a dry landscape during summers, right. It is a lush green region during rainy season, but it becomes a dry landscape during summers. Next, shedding of leaves. Shedding of leaves, right. अभी जो हम सीजन में जा रहे हैं, इट इज स्प्रिंग सीजन, राइट. अभी जो सीजन शुरू होगा इंडिया में, इट इज स्प्रिंग. इन स्प्रिंग सीजन देयर वुड बी शेडिंग ऑफ लीव्स ऑफ प्लांट्स. डू वी फॉल इन दिस पर्टिकुलर रेंज? ट्रॉपिकल रेंज में हम लोग आते हैं, राइट. सो इन इंडिया विच फॉरेस्ट वी हैव ट्रॉपिकल डेसिडुअस फॉरेस्ट, राइट. सो ट्रॉपिकल डेसिडुअस फॉरेस्ट में जो ट्रीज होती है वो लीव्स शेड करती है ड्यूरिंग स्प्रिंग सीजन. No, autumn in autumn season shedding is there for temperate deciduous, right? जो आप movies में वगैरह देखते हैं, वो जो ब्राउन गोल्डन कलर के लीव्स होते हैं ट्रीज पे, दैट इज देयर इन ऑटम सीजन. ऑटम इज फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर सीजन. नेक्स्ट, so if plants are shedding their leaves, they won't be able to carry out the activity of photosynthesis normally, right? And that's why if they have to survive, they have to enter into a phase of dormancy. Dormancy phase would be seen in these plants. लिख तो लीजिए और सांस ले लीजिए, then you can shedding of leaves, and that's why plants have to enter into a phase called as dormancy phase. मतलब क्या? It is a phase wherein plants do not grow. The activity of growth is stopped during the process of dormancy. As a result of that, the requirement of food in plants reduces. Right? See, अगर leaves नहीं है, obviously there will be no photosynthesis. अगर photosynthesis नहीं है, food नहीं produce हो रहा है. Is it possible for these plants to grow during this particular season? And that's why they enter into a phase of suspended development, and that phase of suspended development is called as dormancy. Okay? But at the same time, you also have to understand that it is not that leaves are getting shedded at a particular time. मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि एक दिन आया पूरे leaves shed हो. No, it happens gradually, right? And that's why that also allows plants to gather enough food to let's say maintain themselves. वो जो food gather होता है उस season में, that is only for maintenance purpose, it is not for growth purpose, right? क्यों? क्योंकि plants किस phase में चले गए? Dormancy, a phase of suspended development. ठीक है? So that is what are important features of tropical deciduous. Clear? Fine. Next, यहाँ पे any doubt in this? Next, as drier season starts, the levels of chlorophyll fall in plants, in leaves of plants. Giving them orange, golden colors. This is a preparation for shedding of leaves during autumn season. वो मोहब्बतें वगैरह आपने देखा होगा, देखिए fine. So in those movies you have those kind of leaves. So वो है इस एरिया में मिलने वाले ट्रीज. ठीक है? So temperate region में जो शेडिंग होती है वो दूसरे सीजन में होती है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, राइट नाउ वी आर एंटरिंग फ्रॉम विंटर टू समर, राइट? वी आर एंटरिंग फ्रॉम विंटर टू समर. उसके बीच में एक ट्रांजिशन फेज होता है, वो है स्प्रिंग सीजन. हमारे यहाँ पे ट्रीज स्प्रिंग सीजन में लीव्स शेड करें. वहां पे टेम्परेट एरियाज में व्हेन दे आर मूविंग फ्रॉम समर टू विंटर, समर टू विंटर जो ट्रांजिशन होता है उसमें एक ट्रांजिशन फेज होता है कॉल्ड एज ऑटम. उस ऑटम सीजन में ये ट्रीज लीव्स शेड करें. ठीक है? आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड? ऑन ड्रायर कंडीशंस. क्यों? व्हाट इज द रीजन? रीजन इज ड्रायर कंडीशंस, राइट? कंडीशंस वुड बी गेटिंग ड्रायर नाउ, एंड एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट अगर प्लांट्स को सर्वाइव करना है तो उन्हें क्या करना पड़ेगा? उनके लीव्स शेड करने पड़ेंगे, सो दैट दे विल बी एबल टू कंटिन्यू देयर सर्वाइवल इन द समर सीजन, राइट? ये शेडिंग रिस्पॉन्स होता है फॉर द अपीयरेंस ऑफ ड्रायर कंडीशंस. ठीक है? क्यों? क्योंकि वाटर लॉस कहां से हो रहा है? वाटर लॉस कहां से हो रहा है? स्टोमेटा से, राइट. स्टोमेटा कहाँ पे होता है? लीव्स पे होता है. अगर लीव्स झड़ गए तो विल देयर बी स्टोमेटा, विल देयर बी वाटर लॉस? दैट्स व्हाई. एंड देन दे एंटर द फेज ऑफ डॉर्मेंसी, and then they enter the phase of dormancy. ठीक है. So those are the features that you should be aware of. हाँ. ठीक है. Next now. Now you can write species. Species. Okay. How many classes will I take? बता ही देता हूँ. I'll take around let's say 26 classes, 26, 27 classes. Maybe by the end of this month, we will be able to complete this subject. 40 classes? No, no. Maybe, see, I'm not aware, but maybe disaster management, क्योंकि प्रयागराज में मैंने लिया था disaster management, and that's clear है. Next. Next now. Next is species. Producers. Can you name some producers? Can you name some producers that we have in tropical deciduous forest? Sal, teak, neem, mahua, पेड़, hair, शीशम, एक्सेट्रा. ठीक है. साल, टीक, नीम, महुआ, बेर, खेर, शीशम, सैंडलवुड, बाम्बू, many you can add. Consumers. Consumers, you can write your favorite animals that you can spot in India. Right? India में जो भी animals spot कर सकते हैं आप लिख सकते हो. Right? You can write elephants, tigers, leopards, right? Rhinos, deers, all those animals you can write. Don't write zebra, don't write giraffe, right? ऐसे नहीं दिखते ना हमारे यहाँ पे. क्या दिखते हैं? किसी ने देखे जंगल में zebras and giraffe? We do not have it. It is there in some other biome. We will write about it. Species in temperate deciduous. Temperate deciduous पे नाम लिखिए please. Write down. Oak. Oak. O-A-K. Oak. Maple. M-A-P-L-E. Maple. Chestnut. Chestnut. Walnut. Cherry. Cherry. Birch. B-I-R-C-H. Birch. ठीक है. ये सारे में देखने को मिलते हैं. B-I-R-C-H. Birch. These are the producers that we have in temperate deciduous. Next, consumers. Consumers. Panda. Panda. Right? Very important. Panda. Next, otters. Otter. O-T-T-E-R. Otters. Otters. Black bear. Black bear. Black bear. Right? Bear. Masha and bear. Rabbits. Rabbits. Woodpeckers. Birds में woodpeckers. Turkey. Turkey is also a kind of bird. ठीक है. तो These are the let's say producers and consumers in temperate deciduous. Now last point, soil. Last point is soil. Under that, for tropical deciduous, rich in nutrients. Soil is rich in nutrients called alfizole. Right? Called alfizole. Alfisol. Alfisol. It is rich in nutrient. Why? Because of the availability of organic matter. Plants क्या कर रहे हैं? Leaves shed कर रहे हैं, and that will add organic matter in this particular area. ठीक है? यहाँ पे लिखिए soil in temperate deciduous, high fertility and rich in organic matter. High fertility and rich in organic matter. Here also it is named as alfisol. Here also it is named as alfisol. Okay, fine. Now, why we have not discussed, apart from shedding of leaves, why we have not discussed adaptations for deciduous forest? Apart from shedding of leaves, why we have not discussed adaptations for these forests, deciduous forest? See, adaptations are a response to favorable conditions or harsh conditions. Harsh conditions. In these areas, we hardly have any harsh condition apart from lack of availability of water during summer season. That's why we do not have any specific type of adaptation than the shedding of leaves. Right? Adaptations वगैरह क्यों होते हैं? Because conditions are harsh. But here we do not have those kind of harsh conditions. Clear? Next now. Next and third type of forest is coniferous. Location 60 to 70 degree north only. 60 to 70 degree north only, is not there in southern hemisphere. क्यों? क्योंकि इस लैटिट्यूड में southern hemisphere में क्या है? Waters are there, right? Waters are there, and that's why we do not have this kind of forest in southern hemisphere. Okay? It is also known as taiga. It is also known as taiga. It is also known as, और एक नाम है, can you please tell me? Boreal forest. It is also known as boreal forest. ठीक है? Next, so that is the location. Features. Conical shape of trees. Needle shaped leaves. ठीक है? Then pure standing forest. It is a pure standing forest. What does that mean? Pure standing forest. Pure standing forest. It means see, if you visualize equatorial rainforest, in equatorial rainforest it's very difficult to determine stand of forest. क्यों? क्योंकि लियनाज वगैरह कहीं से भी आ जा रहे हैं, and that's why it's very difficult to determine कि किस पेड़ का कौन सा stem है, right? But that is not the case in these forests. In these forests you will be able to identify a stand of a particular tree distinct, right? वो नजर आएगा कि हाँ, this is the tree. क्यों? क्योंकि they are relatively sparsely located, एक दूसरे से दूर located होते हैं, and that's why we call this forest as pure standing forest, जहाँ पे you will be able to differentiate between the stands of various trees. ठीक है? Fine. So that is why we call these forests as pure standing. Next, species, producers. Write down names: pine, pine, spruce, devdar, devdar, lark, peer. These kind of producers are there. Consumers. What kind of consumers are there? Yak, caribou, caribou, Siberian tigers, wolves, wolves, martens. ये नाम घर पे जाके गूगल करने हैं प्लीज, ठीक है? तो स्पेशली दो नॉट एनिमल्स, अगर PYQs का ट्रेंड देखेंगे हम लोग तो इन पे ज्यादा फोकस, प्लांट्स के स्पीशीज पे ज्यादा फोकस, ठीक है? So these are the species of plants and animals that we have in coniferous forest. One more and last point for coniferous forest: soil. Soil. Under that, nutrient poor, acidic soil, called podzol. Podzol, right? Very important name, podzol. Laterite is an important name, podzol is an important name. और एक नाम आएगा आगे जाके, that would be another important. Podzol. Under that, it is formed due to the result of, acid produced from plant litter. Acid produced from plant litter. LITTER. Litter मतलब जो fallen leaves वगैरह है, plant litter. That causes leaching of minerals. From the upper layers of soil, and their accumulation in the lower horizons of soil. Right? Soil के horizons होते हैं, right? You must be aware. So ऊपर वाले लेयर से न्यूट्रिएंट्स लीच होके नीचे वाले होराइजन्स में, नीचे वाले लेयर्स में एक्यूमुलेट हो जाते हैं. दैट प्रोसेस इज कॉल्ड एज podzolization. So podzol soil is the result of the process called as podzolization. ठीक है? Podzol soil is the result of podzolization. Right? Podzolization में क्या होता है? Due to the formation of acid from the litter of plant, there would be leaching of minerals from the upper layer of soil and their accumulation in the lower levels of soil, lower horizons of soil. That is called as podzolization, and the type of soil is called as, here, that is what are the features and different aspects related to forest biome. ठीक है? कोई डाउट है इसमें? प्लांट लीटर क्या होता है? फॉलन लीव्स, जो भी ब्रांचेस, जो भी ऑर्गेनिक मैटर प्लांट से आ रहा है, दैट वुड बी कॉल्ड एज प्लांट लीटर. LITTER. हाँ, ऑब्वियसली दिस ऑर्गेनिक मैटर कंसिस्ट ऑफ एसिड. उससे जो डिकम्पोजिशन होगा ऑर्गेनिक मैटर का, इट विल लीड टू release of acid, and that acid will take the nutrients down the lower horizons. Okay. Now let us plot. Let us plot all these different biomes. We have not completed biomes. Abhi aap likhiye mat. There are some biomes that we will be discussing. पर मैं एक diagram आपके लिए बना रहा हूँ. You can draw it later. So let us consider that this is 0 degree. Then this is 10 degree north, 30 degree north, 40 degree north, 45 degree north, then 60 degree north, then 70 degree north, and lastly 80 degree north. 90 पे कुछ है नहीं. Polar regions are there where we do not have presence of biome. So in 0 to 10 degree north, what we have? Equatorial rainforest, right? Whatever we are drawing for northern hemisphere would be true for southern hemisphere, if except some exceptions. Then if we divide this 10 degree to 30 degree north latitudes into 3 sections, here we will be having presence of desert. यहाँ पे desert है, check कीजिए, right? Here also we have presence of desert. ठीक है. 70 to 80 degree north latitude में क्या देखा हमने? 70 to 80 degree में हमने देखा, ठीक है, which tundra? Arctic. Here we have seen, ठीक है. Then in this area, in this entire 10 to 45 degree, we have presence of deciduous, tropical deciduous forest. Tropical deciduous. ठीक है. फिर हमने temperate deciduous देखा यहाँ पे. I am writing in short, temperate deciduous forest. यहाँ पे भी temperate deciduous forest. ठीक है. Now we are left with 3 places. ये और ये. So let us firstly discuss this one. Next, so this diagram you can draw later. मैं फिर से ये दिखाऊंगा आपको. Next, now you can give heading B, and that is grasslands biome. Grasslands biome. Now, when we refer to grasslands, we are referring to temperate grasslands, right? जब grasslands हम refer कर रहे हैं, we are referring to temperate grasslands. ठीक है. Location. What is the location? Location is 45 to 60 degree north and south, where continental interiors, right? 45 to 60 degree north and south continental interiors. Okay, that means this is grasslands. This is grasslands. Okay. Next, conditions. Now here we will be writing conditions in a slightly different manner. Moderate sunlight and moderate rainfall. Moderate है इस area. Fine. So yesterday someone asked me about ecotone. I think he is writing. हाँ, आपने पूछा था ecotone क्या है? Right? We have not discussed ecotone. We'll be talking about some terms when we complete our discussion of this chapter. So see, when you start moving from forest, and when let's say the adjoining ecosystem is desert, you are moving from forest towards desert. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि abruptly there would be change. Abruptly यहाँ पे forest खत्म हुआ, desert start हो. ऐसा नहीं होता, right? There would be a zone of transition between forest and desert, that zone of transition is called as ecotone. Fine. जब आप फॉरेस्ट से डेजर्ट की तरफ मूव हो रहे हो, there will be presence of an area where we have dominance of grasses. That area is called as grasslands, right? So grasslands क्या होता है? Ecotone होता है between forest and desert. ठीक है? So in this particular area, rainfall is not that much that would allow this particular area to have trees, and it is not that deficit that would allow this area to become a desert, right? So that's why we have presence of grasses here. Vegetation in this area would be in the form of grasses. And why we are writing moderate sunlight? Because we are talking about this particular latitude. Had this been this latitude, we would have taken surplus sunlight, right? पर अगर हम इस लैटिट्यूड की बात कर रहे हैं, ऑब्वियसली सनलाइट कैसे होगा? मॉडरेट होगा, राइट? इंटेंस सनलाइट ट्रॉपिकल सब ट्रॉपिकल रीजन्स में देखने को मिलेगा. When you move towards temperate areas, obviously sunlight would be relatively lesser, and that's why we are writing it like moderate sunlight and moderate rainfall. Next now, features. There are two types of grasslands based on height of grasses. Grasses के height पे based, there are two types of grasslands which you must be aware. First is steppes and second is prairies, right? Steppes and prairies. Which of them are taller? Steppes are shorter grasses. Steppes are shorter grasses. Prairies are relatively longer grasses, right? Relatively longer grasses are there in prairies region. Why? Because of rainfall. Because of rainfall. अगर steppes में shorter grasses है, that means here we have presence of relatively lesser rainfall compared to prairies. Prairies में ज़्यादा rainfall होगा, ठीक है? Next, these steppes have different names in different areas of the world. So they are called as veld. कहाँ पे? In South Africa. Downs in Australia, and simply Eurasian steppes. Simply Eurasian steppes in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia. Veld, Downs, and Eurasian steppes. These are some other names to steppes. Similarly, prairies also have some other names like Pampas, where it's there in Argentina. Entre Rios, Uruguay. Canterbury Plains, New Zealand, and simply prairies in North America. Simply prairies in North America. ठीक है? Here, fine. So those are the types of grasslands that we have based on their heights. Absolutely, अगर पूछा गया इन दोनों में से absolutely continental interior में कौन सा grassland होगा? Absolutely continental interiors में कौन सा grassland होगा? जहाँ पे रेनफॉल कम है वो स्टेपीज में रेनफॉल, राइट. सो इट वुड बी स्टेपीज. So that is what are the features. Next features we will be writing on the next slide. Next now. Here we have extremely fertile soil in these grasslands, and that soil is called as, very important name from the exam's point of view, Chernozem soil. Right, soil is extremely fertile and it is called as Chernozem soil. Okay. Because of this fertile soil, we have highly nutritious grasses. इस फर्टाइल सॉइल के वजह से इस एरिया में हाईली न्यूट्रिशियस ग्रासेस होते हैं, एंड ड्यू टू दीज हाईली न्यूट्रिशियस ग्रासेस these areas are famous for cattle rearing. Due to highly nutritious grasses, these areas are famous for cattle rearing, and that's why they have dominance of dairy sector. डेयरी सेक्टर डोमिनेंट होता है इस रीजन में, ठीक है. wherever we have cleared forest and have put that land to cultivation, we get bumper crops. Why? Soil is fertile, and that's why these areas are also known as granaries of the world, या फूड बाउल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड भी कहा जाता है, राइट. ग्रेनरीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, दीज रीजन्स आर ग्रेनरीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. Okay, so those are the features that you should be aware of. Next, species. Producers. Now see, producers are in the form of grasses, और grasses के नाम जरूरी नहीं है, just for your let's say आपके माइंड को शांति पहुंचे इसीलिए कुछ नाम मैं दे रहा हूँ. अदरवाइज दोज ग्रासेस आर नॉट एट ऑल इम्पोर्टेंट, राइट. सो यू कैन राइट सम नेम्स ऑफ ग्रासेस. कैलेटा, पर्पल नीडल ग्रास, ठीक है. कैलेटा, पर्पल नीडल ग्रास, दोज आर द प्रोड्यूसर्स. दीज आर ग्रासेस. नेम्स याद रखना यहाँ पे जरूरी नहीं है, बाकी के प्रोड्यूसर्स के नाम याद रखिए, इनके याद रखने की जरूरत. कंज्यूमर्स. What kind of consumers we have in this area? We have presence of bison, prairie dogs, ground nesting birds. We have cattle in this particular area. Bison, prairie dogs, ground nesting birds, cattle, etc. ठीक है. No, those birds are relatively heavy, right? Relatively heavy होते हैं, and that's why they are ground nesting. Right? For example, we have in India the form of Great Indian Bustard. Great Indian Bustard is also a ground nesting, right? And that's why उनके जो eggs होते हैं, they are often, let's say, damaged by dogs, right? And that's why we have declining population of bustards. क्या होता? मुर्गिया. बट वो आप एग्जाम ओरिएंट, वो उनका डेफिशिएंसी है हमारे यहाँ पे, है डेफिशिएंसी. We are discussing about environment and ecology, and that's why I refer to Great Indian Bustard. Clear है? Next now. Next is tropical grasslands or savanna. Savanna you can write, savanna biome. and these savanna biomes are referred as tropical grasslands. Tropical grasslands. Location. What is the location of these areas? 10° to 30° north and south continental interiors. 10 to 30° north and south continental interiors. ठीक है, सो ये अगर इस डायग्राम में अगर हम फील करेंगे, दिस इज सवाना, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट नाउ कंडीशंस. Conditions are surplus sunlight and moderate rainfall precipitation. Surplus sunlight hoga, why? Because of the latitudes. And moderate rainfall, why? Because of the continental interior location. Next, features. What are the features? Presence of grasses along with rare trees. Imagine that area where people go for jungle safaris, right? Kenya, Tanzania, ऐसे areas imagine कीजिए. They have dominance of grasses. That does not mean they do not have presence of trees. Trees are there, right? So trees would be there. And these trees, if you write some features of these trees, they will be having short or no leaves. इन ट्रीज में लीव्स शॉर्ट होंगे या नहीं होंगे. देन स्टोरेज ऑफ वाटर in their trunk. In the trunk of water, in the stems of water, there would be storage of water. Why? Because again there is a paucity of rainfall, right? जब भी rainfall होगा उनको वो store करके रखना पड़ेगा, and that's why they have this kind of arrangement. Fine. Next, home. Next feature, home of animals. It is that area which is home of animals. Okay, and that's why people go for jungle safari in this area. We have different types of animals like zebras, giraffe, wild boar, hyena. All those different types of animals that we generally see during jungle safaris in Kenya, Tanzania, etc. are there in savanna biome, and that's why it is home of animals. Fine. Next, plants, or instead of saying plants, vegetation is affected by wildfires. Due to the instances of wildfire, vegetation in this area is affected. ठीक है, why? क्योंकि सरप्लस सनलाइट है और वेजिटेशन ग्रासेस के फॉर्म में है, मॉडरेट रेनफॉल है, एंड ड्यू टू दोज कंडीशंस देयर विल बी अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल, राइट? अगर ग्रासेस ड्राई हो गए, विल दे बी मोर, लेट्स से, वल्नरेबल टू वाइल्ड फायर्स? यस, एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी हैव प्रेजेंस ऑफ वाइल्ड फायर्स इन दिस पर्टिकुलर एरिया, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू मस्ट बी अवेयर ऑफ, see, when we say savanna is not only present in, say, Africa, right? Savanna is not only present in Africa, it's also there in other countries. Do people go to jungle safaris in Australia? Yes. Do they go in India? Yes. So we also have these kind of areas in India. Fine. Australia में जो savanna biome है, that is influenced by fire called as bushfires. Right. वहाँ पे जो fire होते हैं उन्हें क्या कहते हैं? Bushfires. And in that particular let's say fire, trees are adapted to these kind of fires. Why? Because जो nutrient cycling होगी that occurs because of these fires, right? Vegetation is affected by wildfire. As a result of this, vegetation has started adapting to the wildfire. और सबसे important adaptation है use of wildfire for nutrient cycling as well as for germination of seeds. सीड्स का जर्मिनेशन होने के लिए और न्यूट्रिएंट साइक्लिंग के लिए इन ट्रीज द्वारा वाइल्ड फायर्स का यूज किया जाता है. एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी कैन से दैट दे लव fires, they love wildfires, and hence they are referred as pyrophytes. And hence they are referred as pyrophytes. ठीक है. Eucalyptus is an important example of pyrophytes. जो बुश फायर्स होते हैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, they primarily affect eucalyptus. ठीक है. So we'll be writing that name in a while. Clear? Next now. Next. Species. कौन से species है? Producers. Grasses like again names are not important. Rhodes grass. Tonti Rhodes पता है? Rhodes. Red oat grass. Red oat grass. Eucalyptus trees. Eucalyptus trees. Okay, so these are the important names that you should be aware of. Here, so those are producers. Consumers. Consumers. You can write whatever names you can think of when you are on jungle safari. ठीक है. जंगल सफारी में जब आप होंगे तो जो एनिमल्स दिखेंगे वो लिखना है, नहीं तो जाते जाते बहुत सारे एनिमल्स दिखते हैं, वो नहीं लिखना है. मेक श्योर यू राइट नेम्स ऑफ एनिमल्स like zebra, giraffe, hyena, lions, elephants, wild boar, ऐसे एनिमल्स. Fine. So those are the species that we have in this particular area. Soil. Soil. Write down please. Soil. Acidic. Nutrient poor, comma, poor water holding capacity soil. Poor water holding capacity soil called ultizole. ULTI. Ultizole. ULTI. ठीक है. Fine. So these are the points that you should be aware of. Now I would like to add एक point in features. नाम है इस सवाना biome. Savanna is a popular name in Australia. Savanna जो नाम है वो, sorry, not Australia, Africa. Is a popular name in Africa. At the same time, there are some other names like, you can write here, in Brazil, it is known as Campos. In Venezuela and Colombia, it is known as Llanos, right? Campos and Llanos, these names also you should be aware of. Okay, that is what is savanna. And let's discuss last biome now. Because here also we have presence of grasses. Grasses का decomposition होके acidic soil soil में acid present होगा. Organic matter होगा, so there will be presence of acid. Next now. Next is Mediterranean. Mediterranean biome. Where do we have it? Location is 30 to 45 degree north and south western margins of continents. 30 to 45 degree north and south western margins of the continent. Okay. Though name is Mediterranean, it does not mean that it is only present in and around Mediterranean Sea. It is also present in other areas. Write down the names. Write down the names. Present in countries like Morocco, Italy, Spain. Next line पे California in bracket USA. Next Chile, South Africa, Australia. Fine. In areas may be we have presence of Mediterranean. It is not that it is only present in and around Mediterranean Sea. Next है condition. Now यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी हम अलग से लिखेंगे conditions. Long dry summers and wet winters. In these areas, summer seasons are long and dry seasons, and as a result of that, drought conditions prevail in these areas. Drought conditions prevail because of long dry summers. Features. In Mediterranean Sea, we have presence of trees of citrus variety. We have presence of citrus variety of trees. Citrus variety matlab oranges, lemon, like that, right? उस range में जो भी variety आएगी, that would be citrus. And as a result of these trees, citrus variety trees, this area is famous for wine industry. Wine industry. आँखें चमक गई आपकी. Right? Citrus variety of trees are there. Next, it also has presence of flowering species of plants, and due to their presence, they are also known as, these areas are also known as gardens of the world. These areas are also known as gardens of the world. Okay. They also have presence of pyrophytes. They also have presence of pyrophytes. What are pyrophytes? Fire loving plants. Those plants that love fire are pyrophytes. Okay, so those are the features that you should be aware of. Next, see these areas, हमने ये पॉइंट रेफर किया ग्रासलैंड्स के लिए, स्पेशली ट्रॉपिकल ग्रासलैंड्स, और ये पॉइंट हम रेफर कर रहे हैं इवन फॉर मेडिटेरेनियन बायोम. एक्सक्यूज मी. हाँ, ठीक है. तो इन एरियाज में वी हैव ड्रायर कंडीशंस, as a result of drier conditions and as a result of availability of raw material like grasses and even in this case small bushes of plant. हम एक पॉइंट रेफर करेंगे स्पीशीज के अंदर that in these areas we do not have large trees. अगर आपने सिट्रस वैरायटी ऑफ फ्रूट्स देखेंगे, सिट्रस वैरायटी ऑफ फ्रूट्स के ट्रीज देखे हैं तो बहुत बड़े नहीं होते, they are very small trees, right? So in these areas we have drier conditions, we have availability of raw material, and that's why there is a more chance of wildfire. There is a more chance of wildfire in these areas, right? अगर wildfires हमेशा frequently आते रहते हैं तो plants को कुछ ना कुछ adaptation दिखाना होगा for those fire. That kind of adaptation is, let's say, use of fire for nutrient cycling, use of fire for germination of seeds. Okay. So that's why as they are using fire for their own, let's say, growth, they are referred as आप बताइए, अगर फॉरेस्ट फायर कैरी आउट करना है तो क्या रॉ मटेरियल चाहिए? सूखे लीव्स. आप वो वहां पे आप आपके घर से थोड़ी ना डाल के आओगे, राइट? देयर वुड बी अवेलेबिलिटी, राइट? इट माइट नॉट बी द केस कि आप कहीं से लेके फिर वहां पे आप छोड़ रहे हो. इट इज अवेलेबल देयर इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ग्रासेस, it is available there in the form of bush of trees, right? California often comes in the news for fire, right? Even abhi हाल फिलहाल में let's say European countries like Greece, Spain, Italy were also in news for fire instances, right? क्यों होते हैं वहां पे? Because they have availability of raw material. Even in India, we have availability of raw material for forest fire in states like Uttarakhand. Kyun? Because I referred to one plant species yesterday and it is cheer pine, right? Cheer pine वहाँ की local variety नहीं है. It is planted there by Britishers for their own purpose, right? उन्हें they were in need of wood for various purposes, and that's why they planted cheer pine in that particular area, right? पर वो cheer pine के जो leaves है, they are flammable, and as climate change we are witnessing in Uttarakhand, also we are witnessing those kind of forest fire instances, right? Raw material कौन सा है? Raw material is in the form of grasses. Raw material is in the form of small bushes of trees which aid the spread of forest fire. That would be from clear hai? So coming back to our discussion of species, pehle producers, you can write small bushes of plants like olives, figs, oranges, rosemary, lavender, makia, makia, MACCHIA, makia. ठीक है. So these are the plants that you should be aware of. Here, अगर आप इन्हें विजुअलाइज करेंगे या घर पे जाके गूगल करेंगे तो you'll find that they are not very big trees. That's why they are acting as a kind of raw material for the occurrence of fire. Consumers. Consumers are in the form of goats, rabbits, lizards. Large animals are absent in these areas. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्हें छुपने के लिए जगह ही नहीं. Right? Trees are smaller trees in this particular area, and that's why they won't be able to hide. And that's why we have presence of these kind of animals in this area. Large animals are absent from Mediterranean Sea. Not Mediterranean, Mediterranean biome, not sea. Okay, fine. So that is what is a discussion of different biomes. Now you can draw this. हाँ, क्या करना है? दोनों तरफ है. It is available in both the margins, eastern margins and western margins both. What kind of forest is present in soil in Mediterranean Sea? You can write down. You can write down soil. Terra rosa. Terra rosa, important one. Terra rosa. Soil. Soil is terra rosa. So it is red in color because of the presence of hematite. Hematite is there in this soil, and that's why it is red in color. Again, an important name. जो भी typical नाम आया है अपने discussion में, that would be important from your exams point. ठीक है? Laterite, Chernozem, Podzol, Terra rosa. These are the important names that you should remember. Here, no, it will not be acidic. Why? Because it lacks humus. वो आपको draw करना है, कर लीजिए. So we conclude our discussion for today. If you want to ask any doubt, you may ask. Online students as well. Pure standing मतलब क्या? Pure standing मतलब आप अलग अलग ट्रीज का स्टैंड डिफरेंशिएट कर पाओगे. राइट? ट्रीज का स्टैंड आप डिफरेंशिएट कर पाओगे. मतलब ये एक ट्री है, ये दूसरी ट्री है, ऐसा ये जो स्टैंड है वो डिफरेंशिएट कर पाओगे. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्योर स्टैंडिंग. दैट इज प्योर स्टैंडिंग. Litter means fallen leaves, dead organic matter that is added by plants. आज क्लास थोड़ा जल्दी ऑफ कर दी. क्या है आज? आज तो मैच नहीं है. काफी ज्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन हो गई. Neem, do they shed leaves? Yes, they do. If it stream, what क्या फीचर्स में लिखना है? सॉइल का, सॉइल वाला पॉइंट अलग से भी लिख सकते हो, नो प्रॉब्लम. नो नो नो. Done. Not second time, further. ह्यूमस फॉर्म हुआ, ह्यूमस के बाद उसका फर्दर डिग्रेडेशन होगा, एंड दैट प्रोसेस इज मिनरलाइजेशन. फॉर्मेशन ऑफ ह्यूमस इज नॉट मिनरलाइजेशन, राइट. फॉर्मेशन ऑफ ह्यूमस इज ह्यूमिफिकेशन. उसके बाद उसका फिर से डिग्रेडेशन जब होगा वो होगी मिनरलाइजेशन की स्टेप. बायो एक्यूमुलेशन मैग्निफिकेशन फिर से एक बार. Fine. क्या क्या? No, 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 no. Weathering and erosion is associated with rocks, right? Rocks का होता है, ठीक है. हाँ, बायो एक्यूमुलेशन एंड मैग्निफिकेशन. ठीक है, जस्ट अ मिनट. No, no, no problem. So, what is bioaccumulation? See, in both these processes, there is increase in the level of contaminants. Contaminants की level increase हो रही है दोनों में, right? पर बायो एक्यूमुलेशन में वो इंक्रीज किसी दूसरे कारण से होती है, इसमें वो दूसरे कारण से. बायो एक्यूमुलेशन में वाई देर इज इंक्रीज इन कंटेमिनेंट्स, इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ time. As a particular organism lives in that particular surrounding for a longer period of time, it will be having increase in the contamination. ठीक है. Excuse me, hello, 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 hello. ठीक है. But on the other hand, in biomagnification, there is increase in the contamination. Why? Because that contaminant is passed on from one organism to another organism over a food chain, right? तो वो क्यों होता है? वो ट्रॉफिक लेवल के वजह से होता है. वो इंक्रीज ट्रॉफिक लेवल के वजह से होता है. यू कैन जस्ट गो थ्रू दैट पिक्चर. इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पिक्चर टू अंडरस्टैंड दीज टू टर्म्स, राइट. उस पिक्चर में अगर आप बायो एक्यूमुलेशन देखेंगे तो एक फिश दिया है जिसकी साइज ग्रो हो रही है एज इट इज लेट्स से ग्रोइंग विथ टाइम, राइट. और उसमें उसके बॉडी में कंटेमिनेंट्स भी इंक्रीज हो रहे हैं, right? पर अगर इसका पिक्चर आप देखोगे तो पहले कोई श्रिम्स है, फिर उसके बाद कोई फिश है, फिर उसके बाद कोई अलग स्पीशीज, राइट. सो एज contaminants are getting passed from one trophic level to another, there is increase in the concentration. So just go through that picture, you will get more clarity about these two terms. ठीक है, फाइन, क्लियर है सबको? बायो एक्यूमुलेशन मैग्निफिकेशन क्लियर है? फाइन. देयर विल बी वन PYQ that I'll be asking to you. हेलो हेलो, आपको एक PYQ पूछूंगा बायो एक्यूमुलेशन और मैग्निफिकेशन के बारे में, ठीक है. पढ़ के आना अच्छे से. जिसको मैंने बताया उसको समझ में आ गया, ठीक है. सो मे बी डे आफ्टर टुमारो, टाइम वर्क सब बता दे रहा हूँ, सब PYQ भी अगर आप देखना चाहो तो देख लीजिए, राइट. पर आपको ही पूछूंगा. हाँ, सेल्लोज वाला आंसर कल डिस्कस करते हैं. राइट डाउन वन मोर क्वेश्चन, राइट डाउन वन मोर क्वेश्चन. मैंने थोड़ी ना कहा कि आपको पैक कर लीजिए, यू मे लीव, राइट. राइट डाउन वन क्वेश्चन. Question is, discuss different processes occurring during carbon cycle. Discuss different processes occurring in the carbon cycle. Occurring in the carbon cycle. Different processes occurring in the carbon cycle. Full stop and continue. How human beings are influencing carbon cycle. How human beings are influencing carbon cycle. 10 marks. Okay. So write down this as well. Tomorrow we'll discuss both cellulose wala and this question. Okay. If you have any doubt, please ask. Else, see you tomorrow. Thank you. हाँ PYQ वही तो बोला मैंने, PYQ परसों करेंगे. परसों we will be doing PYQ. कॉन्टिनेंटल इंटीरियर क्या होता है, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल इंडिया के केस में मान लेते हैं दिस इज इंडिया. सो ये जो लोकेशन है ये कॉन्टिनेंटल इंटीरियर हो गई, राइट? मान लेते हैं दिस इज इंडिया. सो ये जो लोकेशन है डेक्कन इंटीरियर की, डेक्कन इंटीरियर, सो दिस इज कॉन्टिनेंटल इंटीरियर लोकेशन. प्रीतम, सॉरी प्रीतम, हाँ राइट. कॉन्टिनेंटल इंटीरियर मतलब क्या? इवन दिल्ली इज कॉन्टिनेंटल इंटीरियर. ठीक है. रिपीट क्वेश्चन वंस अगेन. Discuss the processes involved in carbon cycle. How human beings influence carbon cycle. That is the question. Last 4 chapters के नाम बता दीजिए. पहला है organisms and population. Second is ecosystem. Third is biodiversity and fourth is environmental issues. Right? 4 chapter है. पहला है organisms and population. Second ecosystem, third biodiversity, fourth environmental issues. ठीक है. फाइन, यू मे लीव. ऑफलाइन स्टूडेंट्स यू मे लीव. थैंक यू. अच्छा आपका दूसरा क्लास है. ओके. ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स आपके डाउट्स पूछिए जल्दी से. थैंक यू. डाउट्स? ओके. फाइन, थैंक यू.